What is time then? Do the same thing that what is light. You cannot just repeat in your mind. I don't know what light is, but I know it exists because I know what darkness feels like in experience. What is time? It's much more difficult to address, because to understand the concept of time, you have to be deprived of it. You have to know how it is to exist out of time. So if you just try to fit more stuff in your schedule and you know what absence of time is because I don't have enough time, this is not non-time. This is believing in time and imposing yourself ego structures that produce the guilt of not attaining objectives. Okay? Lacking time is also suggesting that there is time. Now you need to know what is non-time. Not the lack of time, but the absence of its concept. Now follow me in this, and if you don't understand, it doesn't matter. You're going to watch this video 5 times and just rewind, play, okay? If your attention is in the past never existed. Because when something happened in the past, at the moment it happened, it was the present. Everything is just always now. The past is a concept that does not exist. The future is a concept that does not exist. Because in the future, what will happen, when it will happen now, at the moment. So, past and future are fantasies that we use to organize consecutive events. But past never existed. There is something, I understand this because there are no words that exist in the dictionary to allow me to explain this. So I'm using words that make no sense, but you try to find what's in between the lines. So, there is something that happened that I will say before now is. Let's call that the past. But what we conceive of the past is not something that existed compared to now. Okay, so I've got memories. And if what my attention is resting on is what happened before, I'm in the past. Meaning that I'm just fantasizing on the drama that happened. Okay? So I'm not now. If I'm so worried of what's going to happen, I'm in the fantasy trying to control the consecution of events after now, so I'm not now. I'm in a fantasy that still does not exist until it does. And when it will start to exist, it will be a now. It will not be a future. So you understand your relation in time? You have to remember that the only thing that exists is now. Everything else is fantasy. But you have to plan ahead. It's wise. If you plan ahead because you are wise, because you are prudent, prudence is a virtue. It allows you to alleviate suffering or avoid creating more suffering. You plan ahead. If you are in the future because you are insecure, you are enslaved. So there's a difference between prudence and insecurity. Is a fear denying you the ability to be now? You're afraid of the future? Okay? Plan ahead, but never expect your plan to work out. Just do what you can so it does, because you're prudent and conscious, not because you are afraid of the end result. Don't build expectations, hoping or being certain that will work Oh, I know this time it's going to pay out. Ring. Or egocentrism. It's going to happen. It's me. Don't build anything of the ego, but plan ahead to become conscious of how God does it. Plan stuff, but then stuff happens. Doesn't matter what happens, because each time it happens, it's not future, it's just a new now, from which point I can realign the plan. In a state of faith and prudence, wisdom, not insecure and afraid, or proud, or attached. Oof, so you get this? You have to go back and integrate your past stuff. Because the emotion you compacted in the past are not in your past, they're in now. Okay? They're right now. You still carry them now. You just use the past fantasy to reawaken the memories and dig this stuff up. Because you are wise. Because you have faith. Because you want to resolve karma. Because you want to be relieved of the actual weight that you carry on your soul. If you deny, same way you're in the deny, I'm afraid of the future. If you deny the past because of shame, I'm so ashamed of what I did, I'll try to forget it. You're just pretending that it's lost in the past. It's completely now. Right? Imagining stuff like I could actually forget, but the soul will punch new experiences in your lives to be certain that you have to face it. So it is wise to contemplate the future, fantasy, so that you orient yourself. But stay now. It is wise to go in the past. Resolve the stuff. Take the time to review your lessons so that you can pass with a higher grade. And stay now. How we do this is, for example, once an integration process is done, happy faces. When you do happy facing, you're not thinking of anything else than, I'm so happy. Okay? So, to understand what is non-time, you have to spend time now. So you can produce the experience of, I was always in a state of now. Everything is in relationship to now. So from the eyes of God, there's not a timeline. There's a now that permutes itself, but stays at the same moment. Does not go back or advance in time. It just stays there. But when we observe it, we see it go forward at the mechanical level. In quantum physics, we also see it go backwards because it flows in itself. This is so weird. So, if you spend in your life accumulation of 20 years in the future, your mind always afraid of what's going to happen, and 25 years in the past, ashamed or stuck in whatever, you've got, let's say, 45 years of not yourself. You've got 45 years, for example, of accumulation of not now. So you need to spend 45 years now to balance yourself out. But it's not going to happen in 45 years. It could happen in 45 minutes. It could happen in 45 days. Because when you were afraid of the future, or ashamed of the past, for example, you were just submitted to subconscious processes. One conscious thought is so powerful compared to a subconscious natural process that just ripples around in your mind. So if you concentrate on, I'm here, that's it, now, just there. And disconnect from past and future. In only a few moments, a few hours of meditation on now, you're going to balance out all the subconscious and reflexive past and future. Okay? But you still have to accumulate a mass of now that will override the mass of non-now. When you're not in future and not in past, you know that time does not exist. Then you stop believing that time exists, and you know it never existed. And then you understand there was only self. And I can plan ahead, and I can reintegrate whatever was left. And I can base my planning ahead compared to the experience I've done in the past to make it better. So everything becomes so wonderful wisdom. Because you're careful. Because you want things to be good. Because you want to master yourself. So, you see this thing of now. The more you are now, the more you'll gain the consciousness of non-time. Then you start to master time. While you're enslaved to time, you don't master it. Look at it, dissolve it in consciousness. The same way that you look at an emotion until it comes back consciousness and dissolves, look at time until it dissolves. You hurt your toe on the corner of the table. After the reflex reaction goes, look at the pain until it dissolves in consciousness. Look at a cancer with a happy smile until it dissolves into consciousness. Whatever you set your gaze upon, this matter, this substance of the universe, this universal substance, will adapt itself to what you have in mind. This is how God works. Think something, produces it. This is how Shiva works. Shiva is the one with the eye. He observes matter in a certain shape, thinks it to be something else, it transforms, becomes something else. So if you look at something without thinking, just observing it, but with nothing in mind, you're just waiting for the information to reveal itself. You look at it, at something like an emotion, with nothing in mind, so no judgment to hold it there, nothing in mind, it will become nothing. If you look at something without the intention of making something out of it, just wanting for it to reveal itself, it reveals itself and disappears. It will adapt itself to the absence of thinking you have. So you look at all your ego so that you can successfully empty your mind when you look at the suffering. And just be happy. Oh yeah, this is real suffering. I understand. It seems to be a drama. I'll try not to play the game. And look at it. And you feel it. And it gives you all the information it wanted to give you. Pain, 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 pain. And then there's information. And then there's nothing. So you can go back in happy face, in smile, in happiness. Whatever you set your gaze on, reveal yourself. I'm not putting stuff in you. You are revealing yourself. It gives information. You look at the ego, you look at the emotions, you feel them, you understand it. It dissolves. If you look at something, let's say you look at a cancerous organ, and you look at it, but in your mind, it's a perfectly healthy organ. So you are wise enough to be conscious that it is an unhealthy organ, and you treat it with the medicine you need. But when you're looking at it in the contemplative state, you are looking at a completely healthy organ. But you're not blocking the information that it's not healthy, that it's cancerous. You're just, I'm conscious that it's cancerous, and I'm also, at the same time, looking at a fully healthy organ. It will adapt to fit what you look at. It'll become healthy again. So you have these people who do manifestation. Say, you seem to be poor. Block out from your mind the fact that you're poor. Just convince yourself you're completely rich and emit. You know? And so you're trying to manifest and attract and create stuff, but the first thing you do is ignore yourself. Be wise enough to perceive what you perceive, because you know the law of attraction is whatever goes in your mind, you'll produce it. Well, there are two concepts in the mind. There's perception and there's production, or emission, or radiation, or projection. Call it what do you mean. What comes in, what goes out. So you need to be wise enough to be sensible to the information. There is so much money in my bank account. I have so much accumulated wealth. To be conscious of that. And when you get into the empowered state, you observe a wealthy living. Not in the mindset of blocking off poverty, in the mindset of producing wealth. Same way happened. Consciousness looked at, this is what I am, this dot on the map. It did not say, I am not the map. It said, I am this point, amongst other things. Okay? So to become that, ego said, therefore I'm not the map. I'm separated. So you can be conscious that there is poverty in your life and feel the experience of wealth without blocking off the information that comes, so that you accept that it's a flow. You don't appreciate poverty. It's too difficult for you to focus on wealth because the information of poverty is too intense. Look at poverty with nothing in mind. Poverty will dissolve. It will get to the non-existence of, you have nothing in mind, you're just looking at it. Emotions will come. Fear, and eventually attachment to material things will come. And the attachment will dissolve. And you say, I've been eating every day, I have clothing, I've never been poor. You'll get the experience of what poverty is not, or is, depending on your soul's need to experience. So if you want to be rich, stop running after money. The best way to be rich now is to content yourself of whatever you have. Then you are free of the ego's fear to be poor, and you have this mindset of having all the abundance. You think tons of abundance start. Because you're not nourishing your ego saying, I'm so lacking resources. Dissolve poverty. Dissolve disillusion. If you eat every day, there's no problem. Okay? I've done a few fasting in my life, but there was a time I was not planning on fasting. I was poor and didn't eat for 3 days. When you don't eat for 3 days and you were not planning on fasting, it's a completely different experience. Okay? I eat too much every day. So I have this consciousness of complete abundance. I never think of money. Then I'm wise enough to care about how the system works. Oh yeah, it takes money in paper, in numbers on the computer screen, in the internet, in my bank account to pay this, so they will fuel my car. They'll put me in a relationship with electricity that will be put in a relationship with my lamp so I can stay in a relationship with my book and read. Okay? So, but it's just flowing consciousness. It's not gaining money. It's appreciating all I have. Start by dissolving the illusion that you are lacking something. If your survival is not threatened, you remember this little pie chart, do you? If your survival is not threatened, your problems are either insignificant or about desire. And There's a lot of stuff about insignificance, okay? My TV was stolen. You're going to take all my ketchup? You know, if your survival is not challenged, it's arrogant. It's arrogant. My control over a relationship with a resource. It takes a lot of faith to get rid of the insignificance. When insignificant stuff stop being dramatic, usually have faith. Then you really have to care about your survival, because you have a body that needs food, clothing, and shelter. And then Simon says, and mating. No, you won't die if you don't mate. Okay? Remember that? You wrote this in the book?
Yeah.
You're going to take it out. I was just waiting for the moment to tell you. It will produce an experience for all. So, mating is fun. It's not about your immediate survival. It is about the survival of the species. Right now, the species is not threatened. Okay. There's this holy man, I forgot his name, but he's a great man. He said, I found the solution for me to contribute to the decrease of planetary demography because there's too much people. I became a monk and did not marry. So my solution, his solution to this guy, who's a holy man, the solution is the more we'll have monks that don't reproduce, the more we'll relieve the world of a too heavy population. I have an opinion on that. The solution to lowering demography is not to reproduce. Okay? So you can become a monk or you can use contraception. Okay? Because repressing your experience of desire could cause suffering until you get to the point to dissolve it. Okay? So you see, this guy, a holy man, he's enlightened. He still perceives through his experience, which is the Buddhist experience, that you dissolve everything. You have desires, dissolve them. I say you have desires, realize them. If happiness comes, you know that this brings about happiness. It's through accomplishing your desire, suffering comes. Now you know it causes suffering. You got experience. Okay? So copulation is not an essential need. There comes a time when it is useful to keep the species alive. Because by keeping the species, the human species alive, we can reincarnate in very complex nervous systems. If humanity dies and every other species around the globe prevails, because when, let's say, humanity disappears from the earth, every other species in nature will just prevail instead of die, which is now the contrary. It also means that we would have to find other ways to produce complex nervous system, and not so long afterwards, a new species will arise and develop a brain. Because us as souls need a more and more complex nervous system each time. This is why we start as plant without nervous system, and then bacteria with very limited perception. Well, we start with bacteria and then plant, and then eventually we grow to little bugs. At the bug, there is a sense of out there, in here, but it's very limited. They still behave as one. You know, the fishes and the ants, they still behave as one. There's still oneness in there. And the more complex the nervous system grows, birds and stuff, the more there's a separation out there in here. But even flocks of birds, smaller birds, behave as, they just flow together. Okay? And the more complex it comes. If you look at chickens, they behave like a group, behave like not a group. And then behaving. Okay? And the more it evolves, it becomes mammals. And in mammals, we have more complex systems. Until we get to the most complex systems, which are cow, then even more complex dolphin and elephant, and then human. So these are the very elevated, and all the some of the chimps and how do you call that? Apes, all the ape types. Yeah. So it's a question of how complex our nervous system are. So the more experience we have as a soul, the more we want stuff to work with. But once we get to the human, we are so conscious that spirit produces ego. We are so conscious that we produce ego, that we build systems outside that starts to be complex. And then we look at our material life and we say, life is so complicated. We just projected ourselves outside. We want to gain the knowledge that this lack of simplicity creates suffering. So we say, okay, I need my life to be simple and happy. My life is so simple, I am so happy. And then you keep managing all your resources and multiple accounts and cars and TVs and stuff. Of course you do. But you let go of the need to control it. You appreciate it while it's there. And when it's not there, you're going to find something else to appreciate. Sometimes people tell me about, 2012, this kind of belief that in 2012 there will be a big crash of system and stuff and everybody will die and full of people enlightened. Well, it's not a date that produces enlightenment. Okay? And 2012 is not a number planned by God. It's a number planned by humans. Okay? So if something happens in 2012, it will only affect the people that are attached to the material needs, that are affected by this whatever cataclysmic stuff. There won't be any cataclysmic stuff. No enlightened master I spoke to ever spoke of 2012. The drama of apocalypse. And at each about 30 years, there's a bunch of fanatics that say, in 1979, the world, everything will blow up. Like Jehovah's Witnesses, they had a date. Now the date is gone, and I mean, it's shame. Put it in the past. Didn't work out. Get ideas. It doesn't mean that they're on the wrong path. It means that it's an experience. So, if something will happen in 2012, it will have been planned by men. Because men created calendars. Okay? Has nothing to do with the will of God. Has to do with the experience of men. And they will produce it. Why? Because they focus on it. They focus on something. Like the recession we have now. There was no recession until they advertised it on the news. Then people stopped buying. Recession. Okay? Stocks go low because of the lack of purchase. Then we have to borrow money from the Chinese. So just before Bush goes out and a black man takes over, America becomes $700 billion indebted to the Chinese. So now the Chinese are taking over the economic power of the world. And you know what? It doesn't matter. You're not Americans. Hey, the American ego is so, I am an American. Okay, you just say it like this. Your human was born in a certain geographic situation. But God, when He made the world, did not draw lines on the floor. Okay? Yesterday we were speaking of tribes wanting to prevent each other from killing themselves. Draw a line. Okay, this side of the river is yours, this side of the river is mine. Okay? So we stopped killing each other because there was more suffering about the war than the accumulation of more hunting grounds. So they said, okay, let's find a way to cause the less suffering possible. Draw a line, imaginary lines. Now we have lots, and we have countries. That's not you. Your name is not Jerry. None of you. Of course. It's a joke. You get that? All the definitions that you cling on, if you keep believing that you are American, you'll have to die. So the soul can show you, you're not American, look, now you're Chinese. Okay, you get that? But you have to care for America. You have to. You are Americans. What did he just say? In a state of compassion, respect the system, because your karma was to be born here. Your karma was to have technology to deal with. Your karma was to have to put fuel in your car, regardless of the outcome of pollution stuff. Okay? Now from this system, try to make it better. You know, all these people, the revolutionary people, throw down the government and the big businesses. Don't fight the government and the businesses. Didn't Jesus say, love your enemy? If you think they're your enemy, love them until you find out they're not your enemy at all. They're your teachers. They're your classroom. If you have food every day and clothing, shelter, and your survival is not threatened, you have nothing to fight about. If they want money, give it to them. Let them have the trouble of managing it. Keep enough money for you to be comfortable. So, I'm meaning just pay your income taxes. When they ask you money, don't fight. It's okay. With this money, they're going to pave roads, bring water to your tap, bring a cop if you really need to ensure your survival. You know, I dialed 911 2 times. First time for a cop, second time for an ambulance. 2 times. I had people in society caring for me. I didn't have to pay a thing at this moment. I paid my income taxes, and I'll pay my future one, past future. I'll flow along with this system. So there's nothing to fight about. Oh, I don't like to vote for this guy, that guy, and I don't like that because he's going to do this. Now you sort of look at the economy and that drama. Free yourself of the drama. Be responsible. If you want to go vote, you go out of state of consciousness because you want to play along and do your influence. You're not enslaved to someone. You have to do your citizen role. But you should assume your responsibility out of a state of consciousness. So apparently, you're just going to act exactly the same, but not because you're enslaved to a system. Because you're using it. You get that? So this is politics and economy. My politics and economy teachings is about non-drama. Play with this. If you look at the politician make a decision that was not yours, look at how attached you were to your system of belief. Are you expected out of just over-certainty or egocentrism? He should have done that because I believe so, and if everybody in the world would be like me, everybody would be, what, in drama? You get this? You understand this? We're still in the Garima teachings. How does consciousness come here and play? How did consciousness densify to become your playground, your body, your heart, your mind? And how you take charge of that. So in places where there is great abuse of the government that creates suffering, when a government threatens the survival of its own people, then the people have to take charge. Now you won't see me there with a lance and a bit of leaves around my waist going, oh government, tutu, you have to... I hope there's no government called tutu because he's going to think I'm going to talk. I thought there was none. Okay, sorry. You know, you're not going to see me play the drama. I understand that. My karma was to be born here. When there's oppression and threatening of survival, then the system is sick. They really have to fight it. There will be debts. But there will be debts if they don't fight it. See? Yeah, they free themselves. But if you have the feeling that you have to free yourself of a system and your life is not threatened, You're imagining things. You don't have to get rid of your system right now. It's wonderful, it works. The money that was borrowed from China doesn't exist. I know it's difficult to conceive, but you really have to start watching from the self and not the ego attached to values. Right? And we breathe. Stand up. Stretch a bit like you want.